I bought my family a big, fancy house, but my parents told everyone they had saved up for years to buy it. They didn't even invite me to the celebration. I showed up just as my dad said, "She doesn't belong here anymore." I smiled, handed him a letter, and said, "Then you won't mind this eviction notice." I was the perfect daughter who was never good enough. Growing up, my parents cared a lot about looking rich and important. They weren't rich, but they wanted everyone to think they were. They cared more about their image than being good parents. My brother, Lucas, was their golden child who could do no wrong, while I was always expected to be humble and grateful, even though I worked much harder than him. I paid my way through college with scholarships, side jobs, and pure determination. I graduated at the top of my class and got into real estate investment. It was tough, but after years of hard work, I started making good money. My parents loved showing me off, pretending they were proud of me, even though they had nothing to do with my success. The mansion I bought them was meant to be a nice gift. They always wanted a huge house in a fancy neighborhood, so I bought them a beautiful mansion in a gated community in Los Angeles. It had everything: 6 bedrooms, a pool, a home theater, you name it. When I gave them the keys, my mom cried, and my dad patted me on the back, saying, "We always knew you'd make us proud," but I should have known something was wrong. 2 months later, I found out from Facebook that my parents had thrown a big housewarming party. Everyone was invited: old family friends, distant relatives, even Lucas, who hadn't spoken to me in years, but not me, the one who bought the house. I called my mom, hoping it was a mistake. "Oh, sweetheart, it was just a small gathering," she said. "We didn't want to bother you. You're always so busy." I was angry but tried to let it go. Then I saw a video posted by an old high school friend who went to the party. In it, my dad made a speech saying, "We worked so hard for this house, years of saving and sacrifice. It wasn't easy, but we made it." I was shocked. Not only did they leave me out of the celebration, but they also lied and took credit for my gift. I tried to talk to them, thinking it was all just a misunderstanding, but when I showed up at the mansion without calling first, my dad greeted me with a cold stare. "You should have called first," he said. "I just wanted to see the house," I replied. He didn't even let me in. "This is our home now. You have no claim here anymore." I smiled slowly. "Are you sure about that?" I asked. His face looked confused as I took out a folded paper from my bag. "Then you won't mind this," I said, handing him the paper. It was an eviction notice. I thought selling the house would be the end of it. My parents would be gone, I'd have my peace, and life would go on. But if you think my family would walk away quietly, you don't know them. For a while, there was silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. I thought they had finally accepted what happened. Then the messages started. Relatives began texting me, "Sophia, how could you do this to your parents? They're old. What kind of daughter throws her family out? They sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay them." I ignored them. They weren't there when I was working 2 jobs in college while my parents spent my savings on vacations. Then came a message from Lucas: "You went too far. You made mom cry. Hope you're happy. You always act like you're better than everyone. You're just bitter because I was the favorite." I actually laughed at that. Lucas, the golden child, finally admitting he was the favorite. I left his message on read. But then things got worse. One day, I got home from work and found something in my mailbox. It was a court summons. My parents were suing me. Their claim? Elder abuse and wrongful eviction. They were saying I tricked them into moving into the house and then kicked them out just to embarrass them. They even got a distant cousin to lie and say my parents had saved up for years and I stole their home. I was furious. They weren't just lying, they were trying to destroy me. Those months were awful. Court battles are draining, even when you know you're right. Their lawyer tried to make me look like a cold-hearted monster. They dug up every little argument from my childhood and twisted everything to fit their story. My parents sat there in court, looking small and sad, my mom dabbing her eyes with a tissue, my dad shaking his head like he couldn't believe his own daughter would do this to him. But here's the thing about liars: they get comfortable. They start believing their own lies, and that's when they mess up. Their biggest mistake? The housewarming party. I had the Facebook videos, where my dad proudly said, "We saved up for years for this," and acted like they bought the house themselves. My lawyer played those videos in court for everyone to see. My parents' faces went pale. Their lawyer tried to say they were just bragging, but it was too late. The judge wasn't happy. Case dismissed. But they weren't done yet. I thought that was the end of it. They lost. The truth was out. I could finally move on. But no. One night, I got a call from my old neighbor who lived next to the mansion before I sold it. "Hey, Sophia, did your parents move back in?" "What? No. Why?" "There's a moving truck outside. I just saw your mom walking into the house." I rushed over there. Sure enough, my parents were inside the house, arguing with the new owners. They had broken in. I walked up to them, furious. My mom turned to me. smiling like everything was fine. Sophia, we were just explaining to these nice people that this is our home. I lost it. Your home? You mean the one you lied about? The one you got kicked out of? The one you just broke into? I snapped. The new owners looked scared. The husband whispered, "Should we call the cops?" I looked at my parents and smiled. "You should, and when you do, let them know these two are already on record for fraud." Their faces went pale. It looked like they were finally going to face real consequences. But you'd think getting caught breaking into a house they didn't own would make my parents stop. No, they weren't just entitled, they were completely out of touch with reality, and somehow, things were about to get even worse. The arrest that should have ended everything. After I told the homeowners to call the cops, my parents panicked. My mom grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You wouldn't do this to your own mother," she whispered, her eyes wild. My dad was already trying to sweet-talk the couple, saying it was all a misunderstanding, that they were just there to remember their family home. But I wasn't playing games. When the cops arrived, my parents put on their sad old couple act. "My daughter tricked us," my mom sobbed. "She stole the house. We just wanted to see it one last time." The officers looked at me. I crossed my arms and said, "Check their case history. They already lost in court." One of the cops sighed, clearly fed up. "Sir, ma'am, you don't live here. You need to leave, or we'll have to arrest you." My mom dropped to the floor, wailing. My dad started yelling about how unfairly they were being treated. The cops exchanged a look, and I knew right then they weren't going to get away with it this time. They were arrested for trespassing and trying to break into a house that wasn't theirs. I thought this would finally teach them a lesson. I was wrong. A week later, I was having coffee with a friend when I got a call. "Sophia, did you see the news?" "What?" "Check the LA Times." I pulled it up on my phone. "We raised a monster, elderly couple evicted by ungrateful daughter after she steals family home." I almost choked on my coffee. The front page had a big photo of my parents sitting outside a police station, looking sad and helpless. My mom had tissues in her hand. My dad looked beaten down. The article was full of lies. They claimed they worked 3 jobs to buy the house, that I tricked them into putting it in my name, then threw them out when they retired. They even said they were homeless and only went back to the house to get precious family items. And Lucas? He had a quote in the article, "She always thought she was better than us. Now she's punishing them for not being rich like her." I was furious. The fight for the truth. I wanted to sue, but my lawyer told me something worse, because the article didn't name me directly. There wasn't much I could do legally. It only mentioned a daughter and a real estate investor, but everyone knew it was me. My inbox was flooded with hate mail. Strangers called me horrible names, and some even sent death threats. And my parents? They were soaking up the sympathy. They started a GoFundMe titled, "Help Us Rebuild After Our Daughter's Betrayal," and people were donating thousands. They were making money while I was being destroyed online. I had to do something. The truth exposed. I hired a private investigator to dig up everything, and what they found was gold. My dad had secret gambling debts. My mom had been using Lucas's college fund to buy luxury items for years, and the biggest shock? They had pulled this scam before. Years ago, they had tricked an old landlord, claiming wrongful eviction and getting a settlement. This wasn't just selfishness, this was their pattern. So, I sent everything to a journalist, and the next morning, my parents woke up to a new headline: "The Truth Behind the Viral Evicted Parents, A History of Lies and Fraud." The article had everything: screenshots, bank records, court documents, proof of who my parents really were. The aftermath. Their GoFundMe was shut down, people turned on them, Lucas disappeared, and my parents? They were finally facing real consequences. I thought it was over, I thought I'd won, but my parents weren't the type to give up easily. The last attempt. A week later, Lucas showed up at my house. I didn't let him in. He stood on my porch, looking tired and defeated. His shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes were bloodshot. "Mom and Dad need to see you," he said. I laughed. "Why, they're running out of people to scam?" He clenched his jaw. "They're losing everything, Sophia. They're being investigated. The money's gone. They have nothing left." I crossed my arms. "So?" He hesitated. "They want to talk, one last time." I agreed to meet them, but I didn't go alone. I brought my lawyer and secretly recorded everything. We met at a cheap motel by the highway. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize them. My mom was sitting on the bed, holding a tissue, her face red and swollen. My dad looked thinner and older. They weren't wearing fancy clothes anymore. "Wow," I said. From a mansion to a motel, things sure changed fast. My mom started crying. "Sophia, please," she sobbed. "We're sorry, we were desperate." My dad rubbed his face and sighed. "We just wanted a better life. We wanted people to respect us." I stared at them. "So you You stole from me, you tried to destroy me. My mom choked on her tears. We never thought it would go this far. We thought, you'd feel bad and let us stay, that you'd forgive us. I shook my head. You really thought I'd fall for it again? They said nothing. Lucas cleared his throat. Sophia, if they tell the truth to the press, will you help them out, even a little? I felt sick. Even now, they were trying to make a deal. I don't owe you anything, I said coldly. My mom grabbed my hand. Please, we have nothing left. For a second, I saw real fear in her eyes, but I remembered all the lies and pain they caused. I pulled my hand away. No, I said. That was the last time I saw them. They lost everything. Investigators dug up more of their old scams. They had tricked other people, landlords, friends, even family. They ruined every relationship they had. Lucas disappeared. Last I heard, he moved to another state. As for me, I bought my own dream house. It was truly mine, with no guilt and no lies, just peace,